Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Luan, and I'll be presenting to you this afternoon. I am in Cape Town, South Africa, and very happy to be here with you today. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and while I do that, please put your names and where you're from in the chat function so that we can all say hi. Right, so I am a teacher, first and foremost. I also work with the TEFL Academy to train teachers like yourselves. I'm a Cambridge examiner, a language practitioner, and also a tutor trainer. So my love affair with the English language started a long time ago, and I'm very, very excited to be on this journey with you. I've taught students from all over, students of all levels, and it's been wonderful. And I've enjoyed every second of it. So today we'll be presenting a very specific topic. It's an amazingly interesting topic, and I think something that a lot of you might be interested in. But do bear in mind that today's webinar will only be related to this topic, and in the Q&A that we deal with a little bit later on, we will also be just answering questions related to the topic. If you do lose connection, if you can't see us or hear us anymore, don't stress. Just go back out, come right back in again. We'll be right here. And also, if you miss certain parts of the webinar, you'll be able to watch them at a later date. Just send us a ticket on Tutor Support asking us for the link to the webinars. And within a couple of days, this one itself will get loaded and you'll be able to watch all those little bits that either you missed or that you found interesting and just wanted to rewatch again. So let's say hi to who we've got joining so far. Quite a few names have come in. Sandra from South Africa, welcome to you. And then we've got Timothy. Timothy's also from South Africa. And then we have Karen from South Africa too. And Alicia is from the UK. Welcome. Michelle from Spain. It's lovely to have you here with us. And then we've got Gigi, and Gigi is also from Cape Town. I've got Xavier Grant, and you are currently in the UK. Welcome. And then we have Julie from Quebec in Canada. Welcome to you. Megan is from South Africa, Western Cape specifically. And Salian is from Oman. Welcome to you, Salian. We have Eddie from Canada too, and we have Mark from London. A big welcome to you. We also have, I think it's Pernille from Denmark. Wow, all corners today. Amazing. Welcome to you. And then we also have someone joining us from Georgia. A big welcome to you. Tunde from Ireland, originally from Slovakia. Thank you for that. And then we have Pikaju from South Africa too. Lorna from South Africa and Phil High from Australia. So I'm sure some more names will be coming in, and a big welcome to all of you as you join us for today's webinar. So today's webinar is an interesting one. I find it particularly interesting because it's something that I do. And it's something that I did before I walked into my first lesson. So I started teaching online with zero teaching experience. I was fortunate enough to be given that opportunity. I don't think it's too uncommon these days where schools are giving teachers with very little experience the opportunity to teach online. That's how I got started. And what it did for me was it really prepared me for the real classroom. It got me talking to students. It got me understanding students. It got me understanding the structure of a lesson, because for me, a lesson online should mirror a lesson in the classroom. So it was really an amazing experience just to get me in there, get me comfortable with communicating with students. And I know it will do exactly the same for you. So let's get straight into it. Right. So the first thing we're going to look at is why teach online. So this is just a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to be discussing today. So first, why teach online? Then we're going to look at how we teach online. Then we're going to look at a few things to consider when thinking about teaching online, and of course, a few top tips to get started with teaching online too. And then as promised, we will absolutely have a Q&A a little bit later on where you can ask me all those questions. And they're important questions. There are no silly questions here today. So what I want you to remember is it is best to hold on to your questions until the end of the session. The reason being, I might miss them if you punch them in a little bit earlier. And then when we finally get to Q&A, I will be focusing on the questions that come in thereafter. So it is better just to hold on, make a note of something that you want to ask, and then when I do open up Q&A, yes, please punch in your questions. It's important that we get to answer all these. Right, so that's the rundown for today. Make a note of it if you like, but that's what we'll be discussing. Right, so let's get started with why. Why do we teach online? So I think if COVID has taught us anything, it's that we need to be accelerated into this world of online. And the rise and rise of English, of teaching English as a foreign language is no secret to anyone. So more and more people are realizing that they can travel the world the way they want to while supporting themselves. That's one of the reasons I got into teaching online, because I could do what I wanted to do. I could see the places I wanted to see while still earning a living. So the traditional TEFL route is to find a job as an EFL teacher in a foreign country, working for a year or two, and then moving on to the next destination of your choice. But another TEFL option that is currently exploding right now, and this is great news for you, is teaching online. So today I'd like to share some ideas, some tips with you about teaching online. And like I said, we'll cover all those important points that we spoke about. Why we teach online, how to teach online, things to think about, tips, and then also, yes, some Q&A. So the very first thing, as you can see on the screen, is why. So there has been a dramatic increase in online learning in the past few years, and particularly just this year, the market has seen a month-on-month growth of almost 15%. Now that's a lot if you think about it in terms of students. So English language learning, the market is well worth over 8.4 billion euro. That's a lot of money. And also, if you think about it, that's from 2021. So things can only be looking better right about now. So while we have long known that there is a market for TEFL teachers abroad, the last few years, as mentioned, have really seen a dramatic increase in online learning in general, and also online learning with English particularly. And this has a lot, as mentioned, to do with COVID. As mentioned, COVID has accelerated us into that space, into that frame of thinking that online is the way to go. And lots of people have discovered that they like learning that way. Lots of teachers have discovered that they like teaching that way. Why? Because it's flexible living and flexible working. And I think that word flexible is the reason we get into this job in the first place. So English online is the ultimate flexible living. You can be in control to an extent, of course, of where and when you work. You can be a digital nomad. There are no restrictions on where you can live. And if you want to work from home, close to friends and family, well, you can do that too. That's what I'm doing at the moment. And I love the flexibility that it gives me. If you want to bounce around and travel from one country to the next, month to month, well, you can do that too. I think it's one of the only professions in the world that actually gives you the opportunity to travel and earn at the same time, making the most of both those aspects. Right, so something important to jump right into is how. How is this all structured? What does teaching online mean in terms of working for a company or being independent? Now, this doesn't, just because you're working for a company doesn't mean that you're not working independently, because remember, you can still work for an online company and travel while you're doing so. So a few things to consider when working online, we're going to be looking at two in particular. Let's break down, have a little bit of a deep dive into working for a company. So firstly, yes, you can work for a company, which lots of people find gives them that security of knowing that they belong to an organization. So you sign up with one of the hundreds of different online teaching companies. And if you are accepted as a teacher, you simply wait for students to book lessons with you. The company gives you a certain amount of promotion, they give you the tools that you require. And to be employed as a teacher for these companies, you will need to make sure that you satisfy their entry requirements. And you will likely need to do a demo lesson. This is nothing to be afraid of, and this is nothing new. Once accepted into the company, students can start booking lessons with you. The company will keep track of your schedule and they will pay you at the end of every second week or the end of every month. Some companies pay weekly, some companies, each company has got its own structure. So find out what the company's policy is around payment and see if that works for you. Your students will provide feedback after your lessons, and this is what will help you to retain students, but also to get new students, as well as earn rewards or bonuses that the company might have in place. And if you do your research and find that the hourly teaching rate is lower than you expected, don't forget that there are different, very easy ways of getting these bonuses, like being punctual, providing feedback, being reliable, and getting good feedback from your students. That's quite important too. Right. So also, we're going to be discussing being independent, 100% independent. And here, the work for you is a little bit harder, but very rewarding. So, another option, as mentioned, is to be an independent online teacher. To do this, you don't sign up with any company, but you really need to market yourself. You can create a website advertising your services, or use websites like LinkedIn or Gumtree or whatever's relevant in your particular country. And you'll need to put energy into marketing yourself so that potential students can find you online and reach out to you for lessons. And remember, several teaching sites allow you to upload a demo video to advertise yourself to students. And these are often known as marketplace sites. And are essentially a platform. And students contact you through the website, and the site keeps track of your schedule and your lessons. They earn their money by taking a commission from your earnings, but it's usually not much because they have many, many teachers on these platforms. The benefits of being an independent online teacher are that you can set your own rates of pay and you are totally in control of your own schedule. Not to say that you won't be working for a school, because you can also agree and not agree to take certain students at certain times with the school. But I think that working independently gives you even a greater extent of flexibility and control of your own schedule. On the flip side, though, you are responsible for invoicing, for chasing payments, and all the other admin that comes with being a freelancer. Many companies also provide a curriculum and lesson plans which you will have, and in being an independent teacher, well, you would maybe have to do this yourself and create your own curriculum, do your own needs analysis with your students, and as mentioned earlier, create your own resources, or sourcing good materials from various sites or various books. But this is very much down to you. Whereas working for a school, well, they very often provide the curriculum and all the materials that you may need. So I think you can see, just by listening to what it's like to be a teacher working for a company and what it's like to be an independent teacher, you'll be able to see, that works for me, or that doesn't work for me, or I can do that, or I'm terrible at admin. Maybe it's better to work for a school. So it just depends on you, your personality, and what you want to do with your teaching career. I think my personal opinion is that at the very, very beginning, when you're brand new in the industry, it helps to join a school because the students come to you. There is already a pool of students available to you, and those students book lessons. You don't physically have to go out and find them. However, you might find later on, as you get a bit more confident and well known in the industry, being an independent teacher might be just it for you. Right. So let's get straight into a few things that we have to think about when we're planning to teach online. So, as mentioned, a few things to consider: time zones. Keep in mind the various time zones between where you are and where your students are. For me, it's not ideal to be teaching at 3 a.m. in the morning, but for some of you, it might be. So you need to consider that as well. And then visas, make sure that you're allowed to work where you want to go. Now, remember, this is teaching online, but it's still teaching online in another country. So while visa laws are quite relaxed when it comes to working online, you will still need some sort of visa to be in a country for an extended amount of time. I think we all know that. So explore and do a bit of research. Look into to options like the digital nomad visa to see if this could work for you. Then also, if you are going to be working online but in another country, think of the cost of living. Traveling the world is great. We all know this. This is why we've done TEFL. But some countries are a lot more expensive than others in terms of living there. So if you are earning US dollars, living in the UK or the EU can still be quite pricey. So make sure that you're earning enough to justify living there. A better option is to live somewhere where the cost of living is low and take holidays in the more expensive destinations. Oh, sounds dreamy right now. And then also remember your stuff, your luggage. Moving around while teaching means that you need to become a bit of a packing expert. You need to be able to pack your entire classroom into a suitcase to make your life as easy as possible. So be smart when choosing which items you need to pack, and also how much you really need to take with you. I think that these online platforms have made classroom management and classroom tools and facilities a lot easier these days. So you don't have to carry as much with you. But I know what you're like. I know what I'm like. We like our props. We're teachers. So you still need to take your things with you. So consider that. Also, think about connectivity. So, the most important consideration when teaching online while traveling is connectivity. If you're staying on someone's couch or in a hostel or an Airbnb, you need to make sure that you have a reliable and fast internet connection wherever you are. This is an absolute must. Plus, you need to have adequate power for your classroom setup for the duration of your lessons. Now, remember, beautiful places, beautiful, exotic, rural places, they might not always have this kind of infrastructure. So you might need to invest in a bit of a few things, a few items just to keep you going, when there's no power or when the connectivity is low. I know I do. And then also, very importantly, a quiet place. Teaching English online from home means that you need to make sure that you're in a quiet environment for your lessons. If you're traveling, this can be a bit more challenging, a bit more tricky to get around. You know your home and you know what the neighbors are like, you know what the dog is like. But when you're traveling, you may not know the environment that well. So just see what the options are for you. The easiest solution is to book a private room wherever you go. But of course, you also need to make sure that there is no noise from traffic or construction anywhere near you. And also cost. There's cost to consider when booking private rooms. So just make sure that it all makes sense financially. And then, of course, invest in a good set of noise cancelling headphones. I've had to do that. So these are all things to get you started and to get you feeling a bit more comfortable in your online environment. And the next thing we're going to look at is choosing a platform and choosing the tools that we use when teaching online. So, when I started teaching online, I'm embarrassed to say it was ages ago. These fancy tools were not around just yet. So, my lessons were very old school. I had my whiteboard behind me. I would write on my whiteboard. I would be putting pictures on the whiteboard. But these days, we have everything embedded in these amazing platforms. So we have things like Google Classroom, Moodle, Canvas. We have Edmodo, Blackboard. And before you start, you'll need to decide on a platform to deliver your online classes. So we've got LMS. LMSs are designed to help an individual develop, to manage, and provide online courses and programs to learn. It provides a platform for the students and the instructors to learn and highlight their skills wherever and whenever they want as per their convenience. And then, of course, some old favorites. We've got Zoom, we've got Skype, Google Meet, MS Teams. Try a few. That's my advice to you. Try a few of these and see what works for you. They have interactive whiteboards, breakout rooms, so that if you want students to work in pairs or groups, you can put them in these breakout rooms. Screen sharing functionality, file sharing, and also have a look at free and paid for plans. Um, some are not specifically designed for teaching, so you might just have to try out a few to see what works for you. I started doing that, and I discovered that I work 100% independently right now. Before I was working with schools, but now I'm independent. So before really getting started with my students, I really had to do my homework and try out lessons. And what I discovered that actually this could also differ from student to student. Most of my lessons I use one platform for, but I have a student who prefers another platform because of her computer and her setup at home. So you know what? We do that. So also look at tools like Canva, Kahoot, Quizlet, Padlet. And as an online English teacher, you can set up a fun-filled yet organized virtual classroom. This can be puzzling, but these tools can really, really help. So you can take advantage of interactive apps that make it easy for you to generate your own quizzes and convert them into fun challenges for your students. And remember, this applies whether you're working for a school or working independently, but I think more so the latter, where you're going to have to create your own resources. Because remember, when you work for a school, they give you quite a lot. Of course, you supplement your lessons by creating extra activities and fun visuals for your students. But with an independent scenario, yes, you'll be doing that even more so. Right. So now let's talk about setting up your teaching environment. And this is so important. We might have mentioned one or two of these things earlier, but now we're going to have a look at them individually and what they mean. So if you're planning to teach online, you'll need to make sure that you have all the right requirements, whether it's from your home office or another remote location. You'll need to have the following. The first thing, of course, a PC or laptop or other device. It needs to have a camera that's capable of running a variety of software. Tablets are an option, but may not have the full functionality of a laptop. The second thing that you need, and this is so important because you'll be teaching maybe one, maybe two, maybe 10 students, and you'll be using a variety of tools. So, a fast internet connection that allows you to video call with your students without interruption. You also need a webcam and headset. Of course, many of our devices have built-in webcams, but maybe a separate one works better for you, and a headset too. So your device, as mentioned, might have one, but the external ones offer better quality. And similarly, a headset with a microphone will provide a better experience for you and your students in terms of what they hear. Then you need a comfortable place to sit. So, depending on your workload, you might spend a fair amount of time sitting at your desk. I know I do. So, make sure you maintain good posture and sit comfortably. Have a professional background. Take note of what your students will see when they're watching your lessons. A plain background is fine, but be mindful of what appears when your students are online with you. And then also think about notes and teaching materials. It's a good idea to have enough space for your teaching notes and materials if you do use these. And these can help you as you progress through your lessons. So these are all very important things. So we've mentioned the PC, the laptop, or another device. A good internet connection is imperative. A webcam and headset, they really help improve the quality of your lessons. A comfortable place to sit, a good professional background. In fact, some of the schools will tell you what they want in your background. They might tell you they want a plain white background. They might ask you not to have any plants or any distractions in the background. So that just depends. But I find that a plain background is best, and I can fill it with whatever I want my students to see. And then, of course, notes, teaching materials, make sure that you've got enough space for these, that these are accessible as they really enhance your lessons. Right. And then something important to mention as well is privacy. Privacy and safety online. And this is so important, particularly if you're working with younger learners, not only younger learners, but adults too. But as the teacher, you have a certain responsibility with protecting them, your students, and yourself online. Right. So we have GDPR, that's the General Data Protection Regulation. So when delivering any kind of class online, you need to really take safety and privacy seriously. So the GDPR ruling in Europe means that teachers and their schools have the responsibility to treat their students' data carefully, safely, and with respect. So, see, we have a role to play there too. And then you have personal data. And personal data refers to any details that can identify a teacher, student, or their relatives. And this includes, but is not limited to, name, date of birth, address, grades, exam results, and reports. And the regulations provide sensible guidance for managing personal data or data, as some of you might say. So these are well worth reading up on. I know I've had to do quite a bit of homework on these. I don't know too much, but I do know what is in place and what is necessary to keep myself and my students safe. And then also think about what you're sharing, the content you're sharing online. So, as teachers, yes, we're always sharing photos, we're sharing videos, and we should really avoid taking videos and photos of our students, particularly our young learners. I know that it might be nice, just especially when your class. They're all doing something great, something fun, something interactive. You want to capture the moment, you want to take a picture, but remember, we can't take pictures unless we have a good reason or parental permission. However, online classes do require that the teacher and the learners sign in and switch on their webcams. So make sure that you do not capture screenshots or videos of your learners, especially if you make any recordings of your classes. This is quite important. And as mentioned, if you've got parental permission or permission from your students to do so, still just check in every now and then that everyone's comfortable with the sort of arrangement. And then, of course, what happens in an online class happens in real life, not real life, but an actual class and vice versa. So something also to really think about is bullying and behavior in class. And cyberbullying is a particular concern with young learners and teenagers. It can be very distressing. It can be even more distressing than bullying in the playground or classroom because learners cannot easily escape from unpleasant or threatening messages when they come through mediums such as SMS or WhatsApp or social media. So, work with your students early on in your course to create a set of classroom rules and guidelines. I think this is something that's quite dear to my heart because you want your learners to feel safe where they are, particularly with you. You're there to protect them, you're there to look after them. So you do want to make the environment a happy one. And I think that eradicating things like bullying and distressing behavior is definitely one of the ways to do that. And then also something to consider is another top tip is to create a routine in class. Now, I know that a lot of us would say, but why have a routine? It's boring. It's the same thing every day. Now, remember that a routine is just the structure, it's the bones of your lesson, of your classroom. You can dress up your lessons and make them fun in other ways, but students feel rather safe and secure if there is a routine in place in the classroom. And this will help your students feel that they're in a safe learning environment and makes giving instructions faster and more efficient. For example, you can start with a warmer activity that involves all the students, for example, a little game, a review, or a few student centered discussion questions, and then go into your class objectives and review homework or project work. So having this kind of routine on a daily basis or from one lesson to the next, they know what's coming. And I find that, particularly with young learners, when the expectations are clear, when they know what's coming, they sort of feel like they're part of a community. They know what's coming, they know what's next, and they really, really feel like they've been part of the process. And then also, of course, like I said earlier, routine could very often maybe be viewed as a little boring or a little cardboard. But think about it, that you need to mix this with energizing games or little breaks, or have students share their ideas. Make the lesson interactive, make them part of the process, engage your students, and the routine will then do exactly what it's meant to do and give them that security and structure that they need in the lessons. And earlier I mentioned delivering instructions. And for me, and this was slightly new. When I started teaching online, I gave my instructions. But when I moved into the real classroom, I thought, well, these techniques actually work in a real classroom too. So think about how you give instructions. Online teaching lets you deliver instructions to all your students verbally and in written format. So that's really something nice that you can do. You can also ask students to confirm their understanding in chat boxes and speak to individuals if they're unclear about what to do. I almost think that an online classroom gives you the luxury and the privacy of dealing with a student who may not understand something, whereas in a real actual classroom, it's quite open that that student hasn't understood, and you'll have to deal with it in front of everyone else. So the online lesson definitely gives you that privacy and that luxury. And also, unlike a physical class, every student can do this at the same time. So you can check if everyone is on track, which is really, really time efficient. So this works for me personally too. And then, depending on which platform you use, there's a good chance you'll also be able to share your materials, your documents, and presentation slides, and display and use other activities like online quizzes, games with the class, which can really help your students follow along with ease. So for me, I really learned classroom management by teaching online first, and I really hope the same happens for you. And that actually brings us to the very next slide, which is a tip for classroom, well, a few tips for classroom management. Right, so as mentioned, I personally found online classes easier to manage than physical ones, but the online classes definitely gave me the structures and the knowledge I needed with which to manage my physical classrooms. So in an online setting, it's unlikely that you'll be interrupted by students whispering at the back of the class, for example, or passing notes around. However, you might be interrupted if students have their microphones on while you're speaking, and they can talk to each other via chat box and get distracted with irrelevant online content. This could be a bit of a challenge. It's a good idea to have students mute their microphones while you're delivering input, and have them close all other windows on their computers so that they're focused on your lesson. And some platforms will allow you to mute participants' microphones yourself. And this can be a good idea. It ensures that the lesson runs smoothly and avoids unnecessary distractions and background noises like pets or parents popping in for that matter. So there are ways around this, and explore the various functions on your platform, because I definitely use this one too. I mute everyone while I'm talking. Also, be sure to let your students know why you're doing this so that they don't feel like they've been silenced. Just let them know that you don't want any background noises and you want them to feel relaxed and at ease. So even if something does happen in the background, they don't have to feel anxious. You've got them on mute, and you will unmute them when it's time for them to share. They know that they can put up their hand or they can ask a question, you can unmute them, and they can communicate with you. So tell students they can also ask you questions via the chat box, either publicly or privately. That's a really great function that most platforms have, so that they feel comfortable and supported throughout the lesson. This is important, and this creates part of that safe environment, that secure environment we were talking about a little bit earlier. and makes them really feel part of the lesson, which brings us to the next slide. And it's all about student engagement. Now, remember, your students are not there necessarily because they want to be. If you're teaching younger learners, they sort of have to be there. When you're teaching adults, yes, they have chosen to be in your class. But with younger learners, yeah, there's a little bit more hard work to do. So do make sure that you engage your learners. So it's harder to engage with your students when teaching over a webcam connection, for example. It pays to be a little bit larger than life on camera. Exaggerate your expression somewhat or your tone of voice slightly so that they stay alert and interested in what you have to say. Of course, just don't overdo it and go to a point where you feel comfortable, because if you're comfortable, they feel comfortable. But yes, certain expressions, tone of voice would have to be exaggerated just a little bit. I do this. I'm not particularly comfortable with overdoing it, but I will tell you that for my online lessons, I do push it a little bit more, and I do see that it evokes a really, really similar response from my students. And that's a great thing to witness. You can also keep them on their toes by having every single student in the class respond to your questions by typing in the chat box. That will ensure that they pay attention. And also make sure to incorporate fun digital tools such as Quizlet or quizzes. And this will help keep your learners engaged. You know, I find that in most cases, if your students know that something is coming, that there's going to be a fun quiz, that there's going to be a bit of feedback to be given, a game played later, they pay attention because they want to win or they want to do well or they don't want to disappoint themselves, their teammates, or you. So also have your objectives be quite clear throughout the lesson. Tell them, right, now you're going to listen to what I'm saying. You're going to write down important words because later on we're going to do a quiz and the winning team gets a little bit less homework than the others. So you can absolutely motivate them with this sort of thing, but make sure that there are those fun digital tools, I find, particularly for younger learners. You could also use a spinner to nominate students for tasks and questions to build a sense of fun and suspense, or get students to nominate each other. That could be fun too. I find that this also keeps your students on their toes because they don't know who's going to get asked next. Of course, let them know that if they make a mistake or they don't know the answer, that's okay too. I always tell my students, if you know every single answer, then I don't have a job here. So thank you for not knowing every answer. And this puts them at ease and makes them realize that it's okay to make mistakes, but also okay to enjoy the suspense created by a tool like the spinner or a pending quiz. Remember, just because they're quiet also doesn't mean they're not learning. So some of them need time to think about things and answer questions. I had students from the very beginning in my class like this, and I thought that maybe they were bored. Well, they might have been, but this was my thinking, that they were bored or not interested. And then later on, as the weeks went along, these students just started coming out of their shells. And what it turned out to be was that they were just going through a quiet phase. They were just taking in information, and then wow, when they finally felt comfortable to produce, did they ever? And they wouldn't stop producing, and that's where that mute button comes in. Right. So when teaching online, be aware that it is different, yes, to an online a face-to-face lesson, in a sense that you're going to have to do a couple of extra things to engage your learners. It has its pros and its cons, but I find that having taught online first really gave me the confidence I needed to communicate with my students. By the time I walked into my first lesson, I know this sounds weird, but by the time I walked into my first actual lesson, I knew what students sounded like. I knew what they looked like. I knew how they responded. I knew what they needed, what they didn't like. And that's all because of my experience online. And I haven't stopped teaching online. Even though I teach at various institutions, even though I train teachers now, I haven't stopped teaching online. One, because I love it. And two, because it really fills those financial gaps during low season when I can't do this or when I don't have a big project pending. My online lessons really help me fill the gap, but that doesn't mean that those students are less important, not by a long shot. My online students are my favorite people in the whole world. So I will tell you that it's a wonderful thing to do. You're going to enjoy it. If you haven't done it yet, do think about getting into online teaching because, like I said, there are just many, many millions and millions and millions of students wanting to learn English, and so many of them are going for the online route. That's great news for us. All right, so the very next part of our webinar, Q&A. So now you get to ask all those important questions that you might have, and I am more than happy to answer them. With online teaching, I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions, and I'm sure I will do my best to answer them. But remember that it is really a work in process, a work in progress. You start something, you explore, you learn a little bit more. I mean, if I think back to when I started online teaching to how things are now, it's quite different, and it will be for you too. So please ask your questions. Do bear in mind that no question is a silly question. They're all valid, they're all important. And also, you're asking a question, but it might be the question that so many other people want to know the answer to. So on your screen, you'll see a chat function, and that's exactly where you'll be putting your questions in right now. All right. And also remember, while we wait for those questions to come in, because they always do, while we wait for those questions to come in, do remember that these webinars are available for you to rewatch and rewatch and rewatch. A lot of information is given during these webinars, of course. So it's normal that you miss something or that you want to re-listen or that you want to rewatch, and that's absolutely fine because these webinars are available on our YouTube channel. And also, if you want to particularly watch this one will be available in a few days' time. If you don't have the link to find these webinars, send us a question at Tutor Support. Simply ask us for the link. We'll send it to you, and then you will have access not only to this one but all the other webinars, and then you've just got a wealth of information at your fingertips. Right, so let's get to some of those questions. Right, so I've got a question here. Are there any online teaching employers that you would recommend? It really puts, I don't really like to recommend particular companies because I find that it's better that you do your research and then go onto teaching forums and ask about these. I think it puts us in a little bit of a difficult position to say, yes, we recommend this one, or yes, we recommend that one, being a TEFL service provider. But you'll have access also to our jobs board by the end of your course. And on this, you'll find a host of online employers, loads and loads of them, and you'll see that there are some recurring names, and those are the ones that have been around forever. If you're really stuck, send us a message to Tutor Support, and we can definitely see if we can point you in the right direction. But have a look at our jobs board. Also, send us a ticket, and we'll be able to send you some useful information around online teaching with a few helpful links. And these links will actually have a few companies that do online teaching available in these links. So do send us a message. All right. I hope that helps a bit. Right. So another question from Megan. Hi, Megan. How long have you been teaching online for, and how long did it take you to earn a good living? So, Megan, I started teaching online, showing my age here, but it was in 2014. 2013. So for about 10 years, I've been teaching online. Now, remember, Megan, you can either make this your full-time career by teaching from morning till afternoon, and then you'll be earning what you would essentially call a salary. But me, on the other hand, online teaching is just one aspect of my job. So I don't teach online all day. I do other things too. But I know of teachers very close to me that have online teaching as their career. They work from 9 o'clock Then at 12, they take a break, pick the kids up at school at about 2:30, bring them home, help with homework, have a couple of lessons until 6 p.m., and the day's done. And they're earning a good living and they're happy. So it's definitely an option. It isn't what I do full time, but it is an option, and it does help financially. So, yeah, I've been teaching for 10 years now, and I have loved every single second. And Megan, to answer your question, really, and to be really candid, I think that if I were to make it a full time thing, it would be completely feasible for me to earn a living and to treat it as a full time job. Absolutely. I think it's just because I like doing various things and juggling and having a little bit of this and a little bit of that going on that I haven't committed to it 100%. But it would be financially feasible to have it as a full time job, if that helps at all. All right. Okay, so I've got a question here. Which platform am I using? Now, remember, if I'm if I'm understanding your question, it's just sort of the platform I use to do my lessons on. So I specifically use Zoom. I also use StreamYard, where we're on right now for some of my videos and for some of my lessons. So Zoom, StreamYard, and then I have one student, and I love her to bits and pieces, but she still insists on Skype. And yeah, she's happy on Skype. The functionality is quite simple. Her lessons are mostly conversational, so it really works for that. But I find that Zoom really does help me tick all the boxes. I have upgraded to a paid for option, and I find that it really opens quite a few doors for me. Helps me with my lessons, but StreamYard too. But there are so many. So Gigi, I do recommend that you try the free options with all these platforms that you're interested in, see how they work for you. The thing is, with Zoom, for example, it offers 40-minute lessons. That's it. You are not able to have an hour lesson or 30 minutes, I'm not sure. And then that's the free option. So if you do have an hour's lesson with a student, you would maybe have to book 2 sessions, end a session and send them another link, which is a little bit disruptive. So I think that it would be worth exploring Teams, StreamYard, Zoom, the paid option. Have a look. They're all quite great, but of course, it's what works for you. All right, so I've got another question here. After completing the TEFL, do you place people in or person in jobs? No, we do not do placements. But as mentioned earlier, you do have access to our jobs board, and there, of course, you can scan those jobs on a daily basis and save all the helpful links that you might use right now or in the future. So no, we don't do placements. But I would look at maybe getting in touch with a few agencies, particularly if you are looking to work overseas. All right, so I've got another great question here. And if one were to choose an online company to work for, what can one expect a demo lesson to look like? So, Mark from London, a demo lesson. Very often, look, if you are working independently and you want to do a demo lesson, remember there are two kinds of videos that you can make when you're about to start teaching online. There is an introductory video, and that's where you tell your potential students, your prospective students about yourself. Hi, my name's Mark, Teacher Mark, and I love teaching because I've taught students from all countries and, just a little bit of information about yourself. And the reason why this is so important is because students click on that and they watch and they listen and they're like, hey, I like this person. I like this person's voice. I like this person's expression. I like this person's smile. I like how clear they are when they speak, and they book a lesson with you. So that's the introductory video, Mark. But then, of course, yes, you could also have the demo lesson. Now, a demo lesson, sometimes a company would ask you to do one, and they would say, right, For 5 minutes, you're going to teach a few vocabulary items to a group of students who are this age at that level. So that's basically what you would do. So you'd have a minute where you engage your students, and then your lesson would involve you eliciting and concept checking maybe 3 or 4 new words, and then rounding off the lesson. So it's basically a mini lesson, just a lesson consolidated into a short video. Of course, the school could ask for a slightly longer demo lesson. This just depends. Have a look though at our webinar on introductory videos and demo videos. Have a look because they're packed with useful information, what to do in a demo lesson, what not to do, the stages to include in demo lesson. So please, Mark, if you do have access to the YouTube channel, check it out. If not, send us a ticket to Tutor Support and we'll send you the link so that you can actually watch that one too. All right, it is super, super useful. All right. This is a fantastic question. Thank you, Helen. What is the ideal length of an online lesson? So, Helen, when you work for a school, they will dictate that. And I will tell you, in my experience, it's between 45 minutes and an hour, right? That's the average. That's not to say that it could be a little bit shorter or a bit longer. Also, that's not to say that the student will only book one lesson with you. Maybe they'll have a double lesson. But I will say that one slot is usually between 45 minutes and 1 hour. I find that with younger students, young learners, 45 minutes is better. With an older student or a more mature student, an adult student, at the end of the day, yes, an hour is usually the standard. And I find with my adult students, it's just perfect. So for the first few minutes, we just talk rubbish. We say hi, we relax. They ask me about my day, I ask them about theirs. And we also start talking a little bit about this and that. And then we slowly move into the warmer of the lesson and the rest of it. And then if we've got a few minutes at the end and we've finished everything, then it's another opportunity just to ask them what their plans are for the rest of the day. So I would say plan for an hour. But yes, be a little bit flexible. It might end a little earlier, it might go slightly over, but an hour is usually the average. With little ones or younger learners, Helen, it might be a little bit shorter. And that would include a few little breaks in between. All right. Okay, so Alicia has asked, how would you recommend that I go about getting a mentor who is currently a TEFL online teacher? So, Alicia, I will tell you that I've never had, I didn't have a mentor per se, but I absolutely watched a lot of videos. I watched other teachers' lessons, teachers that were experienced. I would ask questions, and you'll actually find that there are teaching forums. There are lots and lots of teaching forums out there. There might even be one on the TEFL Academy site. I'm not sure, but have a look and you'll be able to maybe connect with other teachers and ask questions about online teaching, what works for them, what the challenges are, and so on. You know, more than getting a mentor, just using the teachers that you've got around you and asking all those pertinent questions. I know that that helped me. Um, because when it comes to having a mentor, yes, it's useful for certain things, but they might have their style, you might have your own. I would say rather get into a teaching community, maybe online, and just ask, ask, ask. It could end up that you latch onto someone that might be just maybe more of a mentor for you, and that's fantastic. But see if you can get onto some kind of forum or teaching community and ask all those amazing questions that I know you might have. All right. So we've got another question related to the online portal. Which online portal will you recommend for B1 students? I will say that there isn't a particular online portal for B1 students particularly. So as mentioned, when it comes to being an independent teacher and teaching online, explore the portal that works for you or the platform that works for you. I find that a platform where you can share screen, where you can share images, where you can play little videos for them, where you can put them into breakout rooms, all those functions really do enhance your lesson. And that is irrespective of what level they are or what age they are. So I would say rather find an online platform that works for you, that is user friendly, and that gives you all the functionality that you want, that would enhance your lesson rather than looking at a particular level and seeing what works for them. Because remember, B1 is just the level. It's got nothing to do with the age, nothing to do with background, just the level. So you can see that the platforms would mostly be down to what you find comfortable using. All right, so this question, I knew this would come up. Right, so Laura has asked, how much would I charge per hour for teaching online? So online teachers earn anything. Oh, now this is difficult for me because I'm thinking in rands. I'm South African, so I'm thinking in rands. Online teachers, I'm going to give you rands, Laura, and then you go and find a converter and convert this, right? So online teachers are earning anything between 250 rand to 580 rand per hour. This depends. But then I have discovered that if you teach and choose a niche, like a particular level, and really just fine tune your lessons for that particular level, and you market at that particular level, you're able to call higher rates. So I would say, yeah, anything from 250 rand, South African rand, to 500 to 600 rand per hour. Again, that depends on the school you're working with, the country you're aiming your lessons at, and also, of course, um, the length of your lessons. Maybe, not experience, but yes, have you taught a couple of lessons before this, that you can put on your portfolio? Make lots and lots of videos so that your students can see you in action, and that they're willing to pay the big bucks just based on what they see about you, in the various media that you put on online. All right, so I hope that helps. Go and find your currency converter and convert that and see if it works for you. All right, okay, so I like this question because I had this question at the beginning of my career. Starting my TEFL teacher career, could it be a good combination to work for an on-site language school or a company part-time and have online students? Yes. So I did all this. It's running around like a headless chicken. So remember I said to you that my very first job was teaching online only. I worked for a company that was based in Taiwan. I did my interview with them and I started teaching a few students. Then, because I had this experience, a school in the city gave me a position to come and teach face to face lessons. So, because of my online experience, I got a job at an actual school. But then, yes, I was running around between the two, teaching online in the afternoons and in the mornings at the school. And I will tell you, most teachers in my circles do that. They have face-to-face jobs, but they also teach online. And then, as mentioned earlier, one of you asked about being able to make it a full-time career. I also know a few teachers who have decided to make online teaching a full-time career. So absolutely, you can mix it up or you can go exclusively with one or the other. But I will tell you, just be mindful of certain schools demand that if you work for them, you only work for them. So just make sure what is in the contract. Make sure that when you sign up with an online school that you're actually allowed to work with other schools too. If they say you cannot, well, of course, then that's your decision to make. You need to then decide, will I work exclusively with the school, or will I actually do I actually prefer to work with a few schools at the same time? Then, of course, that one school is not for you. That is a decision you'll have to make. So, to answer your question, you can do it all. Absolutely, I did, and I think it gives you great experience going from one version to the other, from face to face to online. It absolutely gives you that kickstart that you need. All right. So, if there are no other questions, and you're very welcome, I hope that helps. If there are no other questions, we've kind of come to the end of our webinar. I really, really hope that it has helped you, because I find that online teaching, it's just taken the world by storm, and I love it. I still do it after 10 years. And you know what? I don't think I'll ever stop. I think I'll definitely keep going with this. So if I haven't answered all your questions, I'm really sorry. We have an hour and I cannot possibly get to all of them. But please, if you are still looking for answers to those questions, please send them to Tutor Support, where myself or one of the other tutors on duty will be more than happy to assist you, or to at least find some of the answers for you, or to put you on the right track. So I really hope that today's webinar has been insightful and useful. And just to let us know how you feel about the webinar, I'm going to put the survey link in the chat right now. And those of you saying thanks, oh, I appreciate it so much. We do at the TEFL Academy, because obviously we really want to get you started. We would not be selling this course if we didn't think it could change your life. So absolutely, you're welcome. I really, really hope it was useful. Right, so I think that that does bring us to the end of today's webinar. I'd really like to remind you of the other webinars available on our YouTube site. Please just click on the videos for a full list of all the titles. You can absolutely watch some of the older ones, or you can wait in a few days. This one will be available too, and you'll be able to rewatch and rewatch as many times as you need to. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining for today, and I hope to see you soon with all your amazing questions once again, and all the best with your course, with those assignments, and also with your job search. All right, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye, everyone.